Hey guys, thank you for following the Lightleaders. A quick message before we get into the community call with Professor Spira. And that message is that I already got some censorship on YouTube. I got a strike and I'm a little bit more careful now. And the more sensitive content I post on Odyssey. So here I'll post the first, I think it's the first 50 minutes or so of that interview, and then the rest, if you want a full interview, I put the link to the video on Odyssey, which is uncensored because I didn't want to risk putting it on YouTube. And overall, I also wanted to invite any of you guys who are also passionate about the people I interview to join our membership community. And you'll find also the description in the link. And it's just amazing to be able to ask our questions to all these amazing guests and to be live with them. So that's what I'm providing with the space of the community membership and the Q&As every week. So if you want to join that or get more info, there's a link also in the description. And yeah, if it calls you, let me know. And now, without further ado, enjoy the community Q&A with Professor Spira, which was absolutely amazing. So in total, we went for like, I think 2 hours and 20 minutes or something. And I really vibe with Professor Spira on so many levels, not just on the health and physiology, but also on the truth seeking and the community building. And I hope there'll be a lot of beautiful projects we could create together. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to this new community Q&A with the one and only Professor Spira. Welcome. You've been, I think, twice on the show already, and so it's always been amazing. So thank you. We'll go with the Q&A very shortly. Just before, can you answer that very hard question, which is to do a little intro about yourself in 3 or 4 minutes? And I said that because we already have 2 episodes with you, one with Lauren Lockman and one with only you. So if people want to dive, which I really encourage them to do so, they can, but for this one, it's actually a good follow-up to the episodes we've already had. But yeah, just a little sum up to get started.
Yeah, the 2 to 3 minute summary of who I am and why I'm on here. So growing up, I used to be constantly sick, and I was overweight, becoming progressively more and more overweight as I got into my teenage years. And when I was 10 years old, I lost my grandma, who unexpectedly, and I had developed a mother-son bond with my grandma. She was really raising me along with my aunt. My mom was in and out of the hospital all the time. A week after my grandma passed away, my mom had a heart attack and went in for a triple bypass surgery, and her health spiraled downward from there. She ended up having both of her legs amputated, and another year and a half, and she passed away. So I was told by doctors and these adults that we're supposed to respect and admire that I was genetically predisposed to have all of these kinds of diseases, because I was also very sick, and I was on pharmaceutical medications pretty much all the way back from being a baby. But I started on daily stuff for allergies when I was 7 years old, and just some really nasty stuff that they ended up, some of it they took off the market because it was killing adults. So I'm sure it was safe for a young person to have. But even though that was the narrative that I was being given, that I should expect to just be sick, it's just how it is. My ear infections and my bronchitis that I would get every year, and just all these things, it is what it is. I was dealt that hand genetically. But something inside me said, you know what, I'm not buying this. I think that there's got to be answers here. Like this kind of suffering is unnatural. I felt that really deeply. And when I went on a path of studying really as many things as I could. So I'm in high school, really leading like a double life. So I'm going and I'm partaking in, I'm a football player. So I'm doing all the varsity football stuff and going and drinking and smoking and partying. And, I'm doing all that. But I have this other thing going on where I'm reading all of these spiritual books, and I'm going through theoretical physics books and time travel and all this stuff, and looking for answers to the question of human suffering. Is it natural? Is disease natural? Is there a cure for human illness and disease? And these were things that I was actively pursuing. And when I was in college, my second year of first year of college, I met a person named Willie Smart, aka Brother Air, who became my mentor and good friend. And he told me about a lifestyle that he'd been living for over 20 years at that time, called mucus-free lifestyle. And he had read a book called The Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret. And he said that the answers that I'm looking for are actually in that book. So to go check that book out if you want to understand human suffering and disease, that's the book you want to read. So I read that book and totally changed my life. 6 months after reading that book, I'd lost 100 pounds, overcame all those ailments, got off my CPAP unit, the sleep apnea stuff, and all of the pharmaceutical medications I was on. And here's my little before and after. Those were taken a year apart, where that's 300-pound version of me, where I'd lost over, that's really like 110 pounds when I lost there. But yeah, so that's what was going on. And of course, in that process of detoxing and removing all of this waste from my body, practicing the mucusless diet, I was getting all this stuff out, all this great looking, we like to call mucoid plaque, or you can call it whatever you want, but it's garbage that does not need to be in the body. And of course, I felt horrible with that in my body, but I didn't know. Most people don't know that that's either in them or that it's not supposed to be there. So after that 6 months, I just stayed on that path. It answered all of my questions that I was seeking for. What's the cause of human suffering? Why are we in this condition that we're in? And what is the path out of it from a physiological standpoint? For, how do we get out? And so that led me here to where I've been practicing for 21 years. I've been practicing the mucusless diet, and I'm still just as excited about it, and marvel at it, and just feel privileged to have discovered it today as I did 21 years ago, and probably even more now. Even appreciate it more after going through the process and really seeing how powerful it is and how real it really is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Spira. And I really admire your consistency and gentleness through the process. I think that's a real signature. I also forgot to mention, you came 3 times on the show, because I forgot the one which was the ultimate embodied living foodist conversation, which is actually my best performing video. It got already 10,000 views and it was really fantastic. Yeah. So we can open for questions. So if you want to go, Zizi or Brendan.
Yeah, I can go. Thanks for coming on, Professor. I really appreciate it. And you're one of my favorite people, so I'm so happy to be talking with you.
By the way, it's you're in Bali and it's 4 a.m. Just to prove that you were excited.
I was super excited. So I've been for probably maybe 3 years. So I've been vegan for 23 years, and I was raw for 2 of those years, and that I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I read the same book, the Arnold's book, and I started figuring it out. And so the last 3 years I've been kind of transitioning into more fruit-based diet, and probably about 85 to 90% of what I eat is fruit-based. I have some questions. I'm still kind of craving cooked foods and even breads, and I stay away from them. Is that something that you've experienced, and has that gone away for you?
So I used to experience that, and we're a little different than a lot of people that's in the raw food space in terms of how you get from A to B. So for me, I like to apply the transition methodology out of the Mucusless Diet Healing System book. And so that includes both raw and cooked items, but there's a very sophisticated way that you combine these items. You know, there, we don't really look at it as just like it's all raw or nothing, because that's what a lot of people, it's like it's all raw, or it's not, you know, you're not perfect, you're not, it's like not all cooked food is created equal. So I would, and I've said this before, which gets some people mad at me in the community, but I'd rather see somebody eat some steamed collard greens, some stewed or baked banana or baked apple, which is one of the, you know, it's like one of these little secrets that people, that only we really do. And if you're a Mucusless diet practitioner, these little, they're like these little perfect little transitional spots. It's like right in between. It's mucus free, but it's not, you know, it's just like these things that can help you get over a hump, as we would say, get over a particular sticking point. So in the early years, I used I got that sprouted bread, and that was something that's recommended in some of those early transitional items, is to have well toasted bread. And when you toast it really well, you cook out a lot of the gluey properties. So, and the way you can kind of think of that, if you get a piece of white bread and just put it in water, it just, that gets so nasty and gluey and just ugh. But if you have a really well toasted piece of bread, and even if you put it in water it'll eventually get slimy, but it'll take longer to get slimy. And the idea there is, if you're combining it properly with cooked and raw mucus free items, it's going to go through your body and not leave behind a whole bunch of slime. You know, it's going to get through you before your body, it has an opportunity to just sit in there and fester and turn into slime. So I went through some time where I had that, but because I was transitioning, I got to a point where my body really couldn't tolerate the toast anymore. And that's always been my approach, is to allow myself to eat something, and in terms of the transition, until my body just totally rejects it and just says, no, you're done with that. Because it's like, because once those cravings are still there, and if there's still an ability for your body to process that food, then a relapse is almost inevitable, because I've seen it so much where people have really tried to use force. It's like power versus force. They try to force themselves to not eat something that they're legitimately craving, and then they feel guilty about it. And I got videos talking about don't be hard on yourself and don't feel guilty and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, for me, it's about accepting the transition. You accept the process, you accept the transition, then you're not so hard on yourself about those little little details along the way, in terms of eating some, again, like I said, eating some cooked mucus free foods, because that's what I recommend, is as much as possible mucus free, and cooked mucus free, you know, to me is fine along the way, because ultimately what happens is you get to a point where you no longer crave, especially the mucus forming raw foods, because that's, again, when I've talked to a lot of raw foodists, they'll indulge in a lot of the, you know, the avocado type of world, and a lot of nuts and seeds and that kind of stuff, which is cool for transitional purposes, but we got to put it into perspective. And that's one of those where I'd rather see somebody have a baked acorn squash over 3 or 4 avocados or something, in the where it's just gonna eliminate better. And so that's how we really analyze food, is based on elimination. Does it eliminate whether it's mucus forming or not? Does it eliminate well? Because even if it's mucus forming, if it eliminates really well without leaving behind a whole bunch of slime residue, then that's probably might be a really good item to use versus something that is maybe technically supposed to be cleaner or not mucus forming, but if it doesn't eliminate well, if it just sits in you, then that's a problem. So yeah, so I definitely ate. I mean, I've eaten in all areas of the transition, and it's always been fascinating to watch my physiology change and just naturally get to a point where it's easy to fast and it's easy to go long periods 100% mucus free and that kind of thing.
Hi, Spira.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Spira. I'm a beginner on a fruitarian diet. So my question would be, what is your best advice for a beginner when somebody starts this diet and this lifestyle?
So my advice is always tends to be read the Mucusless diet book, whether you read my annotated version or you find some other version, or I say read all of them. Read there's a lot of different editions out there. There's really not an original in mine. There's different versions and editions which you get into it. But I would say you start there and give yourself the latitude, as I said before, give yourself the latitude to transition and to really go through those menus without guilt, without feeling, because if you eat something that you don't need, where your body rejects it and says, nah, we don't, then you don't have to keep eating it. You can move on. But it's good to at least test your body out at those different points to see, is this something that I should be doing right now? An example of that would be something like I mentioned the cooked fruit concept, the baked. So that's something that I've helped a lot of former people that were aspiring to be raw foodists, but they had hit a ceiling. They had kind of went as far as they could go, and they were losing the ability to naturally digest food and just having some different issues. And I put them on our baked banana surprise recipe, which is baked banana, applesauce, and chopped dates. And they were having natural bowel movements in a day or two. It was just like, they're like, wow. And if I just put them on raw fruit, they might not have, because they needed something a little more gentle. They needed something that would help, systematically, bring their GI tract back together. And so that's the kind of stuff where that's what's different about us than a lot of the other people that probably came on here to talk. That's more from a really strict raw food paradigm, where those little spending time in some of those little areas of certain kinds of cooked food, certain kinds of combinations can really make all the difference in the long run, and just make this process a lot easier, make it feel better. And because that's what I'm all about, is it should, it should feel good. Like you shouldn't be all hungry and you shouldn't be kind of, just feeling deprived. And that's, and also, and then along with that, as you start to transition, you can get more in tune with your body. And when you're supposed to fast, like when your body wants you to do something more intense and requires you to fast, it will tell you. and it's going to tell you through elimination symptoms. And so I have a very strict policy that I've practiced for years and years, which is as soon as I start going through any kind of elimination symptoms or anything's not good, I'm fasting immediately. You know, I'm just like, I don't even think about it. And so where some people, they would think twice, because a lot of people want to control all that. They want to control when they fast and this, and like, well, I got to go to work this week, so, but maybe I'll fast the week after. And I'm just more of a, I'm gonna let my body tell me when, and regardless of what's going on in my life, if I had to cancel something, I cancel something if I need to really focus in on a particular level of elimination. But I would start there and think very systematically that what the Mucusless diet healing system brings to the table is, it's not just these foods are good, these foods are bad. There's a method to systematically incorporate the gradually changing menus, along with a certain kind of fasting methodology, along with the sunbathing and getting out in nature, and the air baths, and the whole nature philosophy. So that's where I would start, and just kind of, unless you have a chronic illness that you're working on, be gentle with yourself and give your body time to transition so that it's a permanent transition.
Thank you. Because you must have a really, really interesting experience. Because you said in 6 months you lost 100 pounds. I think you probably had a lot of ups and downs in that period of time. It was, how was it? It was really,
I was so in that particular time period, I was so dialed in. I mean, I was really just so I wasn't even thinking about any of that kind of stuff. I was just like, I mean, my mentality, and I don't know if you get this reference, like this is something in the States, this would be a common reference that people kind of really understand. But we have a Harriet Tubman, who was a slave that escaped slavery, and she came back, and several times she went back to the South where all the slaves were at, and would go, and any slaves that wanted to escape, they could go with her. And we're talking walking miles, like, hundreds of miles. And then she would take them. They called it the Underground Railroad. And so that was the kind of energy that I was bringing to the practice when I started, where it was like, I was enslaved. I'm running away from certain death. I'm running away from somebody a force that wants to take me out and kill me. So I just was really just so dialed in to what I was doing. So yeah, it was any discomfort, I just wasn't really sensitive to any of that. I was just so inspired to just do whatever I needed to do to get where I needed to go. There was that plateau point. Because with that said, I still was transitioning and really and practicing the transitional methodology, and not really doing anything that we would consider to be extreme. I'm practicing, but just that alone, just practicing the transition, just going through those menus and getting off of the meat and the dairy and all that. It was like just doing that had that kind of transformational effect. And one thing that a lot of raw food folks that come and start eating some of these menus, that thing that surprises them is they still eliminate a bunch of mucus when they're eating the cooked mucus-free foods. And I'm like, of course, but it blows them away, because they were under the impression that it's impossible to clean yourself out if you have any morsel of cooked food. And, and that's not the case, as we found. But yeah, no, those first 6 months, really those first 2 years, I mean, just those first 2 years was such a transformation. And yeah, that was a special time.
Thank you, Spira. I have a question because actually I'm not in Bali at the moment. I came back a month ago to Europe for should have been just a couple of weeks, but life wanted me to stay a little bit longer. And do you see a higher need for cooked food in colder places?
Maybe for me, it's really based on the person's physiology and where they're at, what they require to slow down. Because what cooked foods do, and cooked mucus-free foods in particular, it slows down your elimination. So if you're somebody that you haven't really cleansed for a long time, you're a little newer, and you're in a really warm climate, then you might need to actually eat some cooked mucus free more than somebody in a cold climate, because that warmth, if you're in the sun a lot or just, and there's not air conditioning and stuff, you're really in the elements in that heat. It's that heat is heating your body up, and your body can produce a lot more, loosen up a lot more waste than it has the ability to eliminate. So then that can shock your system, and you have cold and flu like symptoms come up and have those periods of elimination. So I would look at it like that, where it's really based on your physiology and what you are eliminating, where you are. Is another thing. If you took a lot of drugs, whether they were pharmaceutical drugs or illegal drugs or whatever, at some point along your journey, that stuff is going to start coming out of you. And when it does, it can get dangerous. And that's why that's where you have to be careful in terms of trying to do these fruit fasts. There's some people like to go and do a bunch of like this long fruit fast or the fruit juice fast or even the water fast or whatever. If you have a whole bunch of uneliminated drug residue that's stuck in your tissue system, when you start to clean yourself out, and especially when you start a fasting process, your body starts to squeeze that stuff out. And if it comes out too quickly and hits your bloodstream and your system, then things can get really bad really quick. And so that's another thing. The other popular book of Arnold Ehret is Rational Fasting. And of course, the rational in rational fasting is that dynamic, that methodology where it prevents, if you are in that kind of a situation where you do have a whole lot of bad drugs in your system that never eliminated, then you can go at it a little bit at a time instead of trying to do it all at once. You do it a little bit at a time, so it's way safer. It's like, because there's a big difference with having some little heart palpitations and just feeling a little out of it versus having like a fatal elimination, which is unfortunately, there's people that have not done this way that's happened to that I know of. And so that's not what we want. And so yeah, so that's kind of that. I find, which sometimes is counterintuitive, a lot of my long-term fasting and the fasting of people I know and Brother Air and different people will fast in the wintertime when it's the coldest. And actually, because if your endocrine system is good, then you generate enough heat as far as that goes. We'll still keep we'll keep our houses in a tropical temperature, because that's where we really should be, is in the tropical environment. But yeah, I've found it over the years it actually easier to fast when it's cold, just because it's that sun is an aggressive eliminator. And but another way to look at that is, if you start analyzing everything in terms of tension and release, and you look into nature, the changing of the seasons, if you're someplace where their seasons do change, the everywhere in nature, you can see transition and you can see that tension and release. And when with the sun, when you're the summertime, you get that tension, everything is, kind of getting that squeeze going. Then as it gets colder or cooler, there's that release. And it kind of, but that same thing happens with the fast when you're fasting and they're just restricting mucus at different levels. But that fasting process, your body starts to contract. All the avenues of elimination, as Eric says in the Mucusless diet, start to contract, and the superfluous water is eliminated, and it's kind of getting that squeeze going. And then when you break the fast, there's a release. You get that contraction and that release, and essentially that's really what the Mucusless diet healing system, when you're following the system, is doing. It's allowing your body to do this tension and release process, as opposed to just where some people recommend just tension, and then eventually maybe release. But it's like, I like this method where you get those tension and release in shorter periods of time over a longer period of time, which just to me is a superior method of elimination for in the long run.
I have another question. I when sorry, your body, what are some kind of changes that your body will tell you when it knows to kind of transition to the next level of this type of diet? And also, what is your kind of daily diet like?
So some of the changes that you'll experience are really when I say that something doesn't eliminate well. So we use that terminology all the time. We say the word elimination all the time, and that it means different things in different contexts. But in this context, it would be, so if I go back to eating something, say in the early years, I would eat nuts and raisins. So I would never eat nuts by themselves. I would always combine it with raisins, and that was something that just recommended in the Mucusless diet book because that helps it eliminate. So I would eat the nuts and raisins, and I did that for some years, and that because that was the nuts were mucus forming, and the raisins would help it eliminate better. And so, but that would give me some of that stimulation I was craving at the time. But eventually my body got to a point where I would eat the nuts and raisins and then just feel horrible. My stomach would just be like, oh man, just would really not feel good. And so that let me know it's time to move on. It's time to move on from the nuts and raisins and not do that anymore. And so it's really that, just where if you don't crave something anymore, if the craving totally goes away, and this can often happen after a fast, especially a fast that your body has told you to do, that's dictated, then, and you get into a really good fast. Like I did a 2-month, it was like 2-month long, juice fast. I know there's the juice the juice fasting conversation and controversy, but it's like, okay, so I did a solid food vacation for 2 months. And when you come out of one of those, there are certain things that you're probably not going to crave anymore. And there might be other things that, some things you might mentally crave, like where you think you want it, but when you try to eat it, it doesn't taste good anymore, and it certainly doesn't feel good anymore. So that lets you know, like, okay, moving on, time to move on from that. And so for me, it's all about elimination, really looking at how items eliminate. In terms of what I eat when I'm not just juicing, is I have some fresh juice. We'll get up, and I'll try to be up for about 4 or 5 hours before I put anything in the body. Then I'll make some juice. or if I'm not juicing, like today I actually didn't juice, but I had some pineapple. I found a place that had some decent pineapple. And so I'll generally have a mono fruit meal in the afternoon. And then in the evening, we'll have a vegetable meal that'll consist of combination salad. And then I may or may not have some kind of cooked mucus free vegetable item like baked zucchini, or I like the greens, the kale, stewed kale, that kind of stuff, things that really eliminate well and, go through my system well. But I always recommend, when people ask me like what am I eating, I always recommend this video that I shot that was what do I eat in a day, but it's a 3-hour long video that I made. And what I do is I go through from basing it on certain period, like years, where like years 0 through 3, years 4 through 7 or whatever. I broke it down and I kind of showed you what I ate, like what my day would look like for those different years, because what my day looked like in years 1 and 2 was really different from what my day would look like in year 15 and 16, So I just put that as the disclaimer of, it's like, yeah, that's what I'm eating now, but that's not what I recommend other people eat, right? Because it's going to be individual for each person based on where they are in terms of their transition. Like the way I eat now might be too aggressive for somebody that's newer. And but then for somebody that's going through a chronic illness that's trying to heal themselves from something, then they're going to be on a whole other path as well. And so there's things to keep in mind there. See, Alex got his hand up.
Yes. I had another question on the germ theory, actually, because being here in Europe, I've been in contact with people who were a little bit sick, and I've been more in the cold, and I was maybe a little bit too cocky, let's say, where I thought, oh, I'm more like, my terrain is really good, it's okay, I won't get sick, and actually I got a little bit sick. I was and often on that diet you hear people like they haven't been sick in 20 years, so yeah, I was wondering, for you, your experience, if you still sometimes get sick, and how long it can be, like if you have, whether it's a day of having fevers or runny nose for a few days, and also your view on the germ versus terrain theory, because reading Eret, it's all about just having this congestion and mucus in the body, and he thinks all disease come from that, if I read well, and so that really doesn't leave so much space for viruses and bacteria that you get from people who are sick. So anyway, let's say, have you been sick a little bit in the past, like, I don't know, 10 years or something? And what's your view on germ theory?
Okay, so first we have to define sick. So the way we don't use the word sick. We look at everything as elimination. So because if there is nothing that needs to be eliminated in your body, then your body is not going to trigger an elimination event, which is like what you're referring to as being sick. Now, if you are filthy, and most people are filthier than they know, they've been cleaning for a little while, and they think, like, get cocky and be like, yeah, okay, and then you put yourself in a filthy environment, then there's a number of things that could trigger your body to eliminate, and where the mainstream concept would be that it would be some kind of virus or whatever. I got my problems with virus theories in general, but in terms of, Eric talks about the bacteria, talks about the toxicity. As he said, all disease begins in the colon. Now it's not that there's some external trigger, because I just look at those external triggers as poisons. So whether it's some bacteria, you're in a room full of black mold, or somebody gave you, you know, some kind of poisonous serum or some snake poison or something, your body is just going to react to it and try to eliminate it and try to save yourself. So first, your body wants you to stop eating, so you lose your appetite, you start feeling horrible, and you get the if your endocrine system is good, then you're blessed with, you know, decent thyroid function, then you can get a fever, and your body starts the elimination process. So to me, that's great. Those are good things. So many people were so wrapped up in this idea of like, oh yeah, like you saying, oh, I haven't been sick forever and this and that. And usually when I see people say that, I'm seeing people that have really never went through the kind of healing crisis and elimination that is necessary, because in those first couple years, you can expect to go through some serious elimination at some point, even when you know, keep taking it gradual and doing. And that's why I say you let the body lead the way, because just going down this path, as your body starts to loosen, the lymphatic system starts to move, then all of a sudden you could wake up one day and your body, there's so much more waste that's been loosened that the body is trying to throw off, and it's too much for it to filter through the kidneys, or it's too much for it to go through your bowels, and it's just sitting in your system. Your body's going to respond with a fever, or respond with something. Some people that have the skin issues, that's just the place at which their body wants to eliminate whatever it is they're trying to eliminate. Just all this stuff wants to get out of the body, which is the name of the game. And so I just look at it like that, because what does happen when there is a point where you do get to where you do have the real immunity, where you go walk it. Because so one thing that Eric did is what was the disease? There was a viral disease that he put himself around. It was like a deadly, which one was it? I'd have to look it up. He had put himself around a deadly disease, and he had caught it, and he eliminated for 2 days and cleansed himself out and was fine. But it was something that was supposed to kill you. And so he did those kind of experiments on himself, where he would try to get himself infected and go around a whole bunch of infected people. And then if there was any symptoms that arose, go through his process of elimination, and you're better in 2 days, as opposed to whatever they recommend that you do. If we talk about, so that binary, the terrain versus germ, like I have a problem with that premise of that, like, because I think the when you read the theories, the way, because Eric never used that was I don't remember I know there's a few people that came up with that particular theoretical framework. I don't know off the top of my head their name, but that's the first person that used that concept of the terrain. But their theory is a little off to me, in terms of, you know, it's not as pure as where Eric was coming from, where it's, you know, or because they're still kind of looking at, because with the terrain, they're getting into some of these theories about the well, what's the word? I was gonna say immunity, the immune system, and all these kind of concepts that we find a lot of that stuff problematic and unnecessarily complex, when it's a lot more simple than that. So from one standpoint, yeah, you clean the vessel, you know, clean the terrain, clean yourself out, and you can achieve true immunity. So you could, if you wanted to, you could walk into a room full of totally sick people, and you're going to be you'll be untouched. There's nothing that'll happen can happen to you, because there's nothing for the waste and the parasites and all this stuff to grab a hold of in you to cause an elimination event. But yeah, a lot of people, again, that when I say accept the transition, that's one of those things where, I try to get people ready for healing crisis, where we look at that, like being sick, and going through the elimination as a rites of passage. You got to go, in those first couple of years when I was losing all the weight and going through those eliminations, I had periods where I was blowing my nose. It was like a mucus faucet, just like gallons of mucus was just pouring out of my body. And part of that was because for so many years I'd used suppressants to suppress my elimination. And for the first time in my life, I was not suppressing the elimination. So it felt like it was unending. But what I learned is it is finite. There is an end, even if when you're going through the elimination, even if it feels like it, that there's no end in sight. And it's just like, what is my body going through? It's just like, it feels like it's on and on and on. There is an end, but the end oftentimes is further away than where we think it should be in our head, because that's all stuff we made up in our head of like, like, oh, I'm doing this, and so this shouldn't happen to me. It's like, man, we got to embrace the elimination, and that's one of the things that I teach. You embrace that elimination. It's not a bad thing to, if you need to go through some elimination or some cold and flu-like symptoms or whatever. Now, to answer your question, I'll go through every couple years. I might go through an elimination like that, where and it can be different lengths of time. But what tends to happen with me, because as soon as any symptoms pop up in me, I'm immediately doing enemas and laying down, and I'm stop eating. And so I'll have stuff that otherwise would have for somebody else would have been like a 10-day long elimination. I'll get rid of it in 2 hours, because I just immediately, I'm not even thinking about it. It's like, oh, I'm feeling a little weird, or I got a little something in my throat. No. But it's rare. But my attitude is I welcome it. So when it comes, I invite it in. Like if I was to get a fever tonight, bring it on. Let's go. Because I'm gonna stop eating, and I'm gonna fast, and I'm gonna sweat the stuff out and eliminate what I can and do all that. But yeah, no, but I put it like this: it's a lot harder to get sick now. It's like it is very hard. It's like, yeah, it's hard to get for the body to get that trigger, just because it doesn't do, because it really only does it if it really needs it. It just doesn't do it for no reason. It's like, yeah, if you have that elimination, healing crisis reaction or whatever, then you need that. You need that elimination.
What about sport? I'm very enthusiastic in sport. I do tennis, calisthenics. What about your practice? Do you still or do some sports, movings? Because I think it's very important if you have this lifestyle on a fruitarian diet, raw vegan. I think it's the moving is very important. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not a hardcore. When I was a varsity football player, I was, one of those guys in the gym that's trying to, I'm benching my 300 pounds and doing all that kind of stuff. I don't do that anymore. So once I got into the diet, I was like, that just because the place that was coming from as well, that was more coming from a whole ego thing and stimulation, the unnatural stimulation, where because that's what a lot of people do when they're going to the gyms or they're doing these things. They take some kind of unnatural stimulation before and after, and then, they're what they think is muscle and health and all this kind of stuff is really just waste that they built up in, use their body to kind of build up and have all this waste, but then they end up having a whole lot of problems later in life because as Aaron said, the vitality equals power minus obstruction. So minus obstruction, meaning we're not supposed to have all this extra kind of stuff going on. But I stretch. I have different periods where I work out more than others. And so I'll have periods where I work out every day and I'm hitting the gym, and but I do try to definitely stretch every day and do my breath work. And when I sunbathe when I can, when the weather's not sunbathe worthy right now where I'm at, but that's definitely something that I like to do every day when I can. And so yeah, it's important, but I don't identify myself as an athlete, and so I don't have that kind of thing where I want to get my body ready for competition, because sometimes a lot of people come from that sort of ethos of, okay, I want to, because the question is, what like why are you working out? So for a lot of people, they're not working out for long-term health and longevity. They want to work out because they want to look a certain way and whatever. And but when you're in our sphere, that like stretching is so important. I mean, it is. It's like, especially as you get older and you're stretching because you're cleaning your blood with your diet and with your lifestyle. And as you stretch, you're allowing that blood to get deeper and deeper into your system where it otherwise wouldn't, if you weren't opening up those pathways through some of those traditions or those activities. But yeah, I don't do it as much. I kind of do my own thing that I developed over the years, but there are some exercises. It's in the Mucusless diet book, and we have a video on my channel of Danielle Miranda is demonstrating all of those, and so there's a number of people that do those, and they're a lot like physical therapy, kind of like real core strength kind of things. That's just some unique exercises. But you might like now, but if you are an athlete, if you come into the diet as an athlete, then because anything that you've developed in your past life, you're going to be able to benefit from it and bring it into this life. It might be different from where you came from. But the example that I always recommend people check out in terms of practicing the diet and being an athlete is Rashawn Sugar Evans, the UFC Hall of Famer. And on my channel, I interviewed him for my podcast a few years ago, and I talk about him in my I think my webinar, where he had literally came out of retirement. I think he was 40 or 41 ish, but he came out of retirement and fought the mixed martial arts, and they were actually talking about his diet, which is interesting, like that clip, the video I have of them where as he's fighting in there, they're talking about like, okay, this is a test of this diet, because all the guys are thinking like, man, I don't know what's going to happen because he's not eating all this protein, he's not doing all this stuff, and he's a lot he's skinnier than he used to be and this kind of stuff. And he went out there and he beat the brakes off the dude. He won, and so yeah, so it's definitely, it's about what you bring to the table. For me, for years, I'm an artist, and so I'm bringing, as opposed to in this athlete, this desire to be a world-class athlete, I got a desire to be a world-class artist. So in that sphere, you're doing things like practicing a musical instrument for 8 to 9 hours a day or 10 hours a day, having the kind of vitality and focus, because that's something a lot of people don't have. if they don't do that, if they're doing a job, it's like, because it's different. If you're being paid to do a job and it's like this one thing that you got to do over and over again, you're not getting better at something. It's not a craft. But if you're working on, whether it's making music, or if you're a writer or a painter or whatever it is, you're developing yourself through that process. There's an artistic process. So I often tell people, recommend that people look at practicing the diet from the standpoint of an artist, as opposed to this pseudo-scientific milk commercial type of reality that most people, because most people's nutritional concepts are based on advertising that they grew up with. All this, get your calcium and eat your protein, and it's literally all advertising. If you go back and ask yourself, why do I even believe in the protein theory? Why do I believe in the calorie theory? If you really look at the way that you learned about those things, you'll see that your morning commercials, your cereal commercials, your milk commercials, your meat commercials, all of those things sold you on this bad pseudoscience concept of what your body needs. They did every one of the things that they teach you in sales. You want to make the person believe that they need your product. And that's what the milk and the dairy industry did beautifully, is they used fake science to get people to believe that they actually needed food that is killing them, which is, a good job, I guess. There's a lot of people that unnecessarily died and suffer, and the 50,000 people a day that die of heart disease, and 25,000 people a day that die of cancers that are 100% preventable when you're not eating those things. That little bit of ethics is not something that they really cared a whole lot about. But yeah.
Thanks, Spira. As you mentioned, Rashad events, and I know we've been talking about athletes. There's something I was curious about. So I followed, I think it was about 2 years ago when he went back to competition. I think it was with Eagle FC. And there's something with, I find right now with the more, let's say, raw food, mucusless, fruitarian sports people, is that often it's like they can do it, but it's not necessarily when they're champions. So, for example, in the case of Rashad Evans, he was fighting for the title of UFC, and then it was like more smaller match 2 years ago. And then I haven't really heard, like I checked and I was like, okay, he hasn't fought again. So I don't know if you have any news on how he's doing now and what's his shape, because I was really excited to see, but yeah, there hasn't been so much since that one fight. I don't know if you have any news.
I think, and you'd have to ask him that, but I don't know if he's going to come back, because I think it was one of those situations where he needed to prove something to himself. That was because as they say with fighters, most fighters, they don't retire, they don't quit, they fighting quits them. They get to a point, and so you don't want to be that guy that is way past your prime, and as you're getting older and that kind of stuff. So it's smart to kind of go out on your own terms, which a lot of fighters don't. They just don't. They try to keep fighting way too long. And we're seeing one of, there's like a Tony Ferguson type of, it's like, I'm like, oh, I hope he does well. I like him, but as a lot of other people have that opinion where it might be time, but he's not going to quit because he's one of them guys. It's like, he'll just keep doing it. He'll die doing it. And, but for me, those can be problematic paradigms in terms of when you're talking about health and longevity. That's where some of the hardcore athletic ethos doesn't go along with a longevity and a health-based ethos. Because I really like, I haven't released it yet. One of these days I'll edit it and finally release it. But I know you all had Eli on here, but I really like something he said at our yearly event. well, there's a huge difference between health and fitness. And most people don't really think they think that it's the same thing. And so they look at these athletes as the picture of health, when a lot of times these athletes are not healthy. They're fit. They're really fit. But being able to, do a 4-minute mile is not the same thing as being able to never have a heart attack and never have diseased organs, having totally clean organs, those, and that kind of thing is something that people don't really understand, and because we're so into the visual, or if somebody has to look perfect. It's like, no, it's not necessarily, how healthy is somebody's heart and kidneys, how well does somebody's kidneys feel. Like, these are, so it's a whole different way to analyze kinds of things. But yeah, I see that amongst the athletes, where there's not a lot of athletes that are really that care a lot about longevity. That's just not the mentality. It's about performance, it's about competition, and but it's that doesn't always go along with the longevity mindset. But and I think that's what Rashad, he went through that transition where he came from that, he came from that hardcore competition and be the best, and whatever I need to put my body through, I'm gonna put it through. But as he went through his transformation, which he talks about now, here's this clip that I just posted. This isn't the full thing. I think this was just what I actually talked about there. I had cut that up when he went back to the Eagle FC. But I think that's part of what the wisdom that he acquired over the years as he had this revelation, then went through what he went through to get interested in changing his diet and cleaning himself up, and then getting all the benefits of it. Because a lot of it's one of those things that where it's so common for us, or somebody, if you've had knee pain or you had back pain or joint pain and that kind of stuff, that inflammation goes away, and we almost can start taking it for granted, those of us that's in these circles that do this. But for somebody that's coming from a space where those athletes, everything hurt, like everything hurts. There's no none of these guys, there's no professional athlete that doesn't have something that's hurting. And and they start getting, I've had a number, there's other people that are less famous that were former, I think I had a couple former boxers, former couple former MMA martial artists that had sent me messages over the years that, yeah, they had just were dumbfounded how much better they felt once they got rid of the protein and cleaned their diet up, started cleaning themselves out, and the inflammation went away. And then they're like, yeah, man, this really works. I was like, I know, I told you. It's exactly. But yeah, but it definitely takes I think what Rashad shows is, if you want to compete, you can. But but then the question is, do you have to? Why are you competing? And that should be, you should be able to answer that real clearly, so you know why it is you're doing what you're doing, whether in whatever these things are. Because people tend to, it's like they respect some of those things. If somebody comes and they do some big feat of physical feat, they're like, oh wow, that must be but at the end of the day, the real wisdom is in the longevity. To me, the value is really in that longevity and slowing down the aging process as much as possible. That's something I'm really interested in, is like, I want to try to keep my just physiologically have my body be as young as it can be, as long as possible. Because I know how, if I stayed on my old diet, first, I don't think I'd still be here. I think I'd have probably died in my 30s. But I definitely just skin and all that stuff would be in so much worse shape. And so that's the kind of stuff I actually look at more, like the way some people look at muscles and that kind of stuff. I'm looking at the quality of skin. Like I'm judging skin quality, and like, is there still some suppleness there? Is it, when you get in the sun, do you burn easy, or does your body just drink the sun in, just like, just take it all in like that? Is that the cleaner you get, the more you can go, the sun doesn't do, just doesn't bother you at all. You can just be in it, and your just skin just totally absorbs it all in. And but yeah, but like I say, this is one of those things where whatever you want to do can be done. So because there's a lot of people that have, because it's like we're still going against a lot of those false beliefs that, again, go back to those advertisings where we say, oh, you need to have meat, you need to have the protein, you need to do all this kind of stuff, where we find out, like, no, you can, if you want to ride your bike across the country while being 100% raw and fast, and you can, if that's something that you really want to do, that you're compelled to do. And I was impressed, as Dan McDonald did that years ago, and I was impressed by that, because he was like, and that's when I met him. He came through, and he was doing all these little talks at Whole Foods across the country as he was on his bike doing his cross country bike thing, and being 100% raw, and half the time he was fasting and that kind of stuff. And he hasn't done it since, but he was compelled to do it at that point. That was something that he was called to do, to go on that particular journey. And so it's really whatever it is that we want to do, we can do it. Now, one thing that would be more maybe a spiritual dynamic that we find, that the deeper you get into practicing the diet, the harder it is to have a 9-to-5 type of job, or where you're working for somebody else, or you're doing those kind of, it gets harder. It's not impossible, but when your time is not your own, and when you don't really have autonomy over your sphere, that can really hurt your spirit, and that directly affects what you're craving, your eating habits. And so, because there's a lot of people that I've seen over the years where they'll start off good, but they don't make an effort to change their occupation, where they know there's not a passion, there's not the spiritual connection to doing what it is that they're doing. And but before long, they start craving pus and mucus forming foods, because it's really hard. It's almost like you eat yourself, that you eating the stimulant to really numb yourself to do some of these jobs, to do these things, and to exist in there. We call the pus and mucus based society. To exist out here in this thing is like, can be rough. But that, to me, is an important thing, to whether you own your own business, or you really are passionate about what you're doing, that those are really important things to think about when you're on this path.
Hey, I got something to add, and then a question. So ever since I've been eating a lot more fruit. I'm pretty much, like I said, 90% fruit. Every Friday I get together with 11 other people. There's 12 of us, and we rent 3 courts and play tennis. And we play about an hour and a half, and it's nonstop. It's 2-on-2. And everybody is dog tired by the end, and they don't understand why I'm not. And I could just go all day. I'm not tired at all. And then also, they all eat meat, and they don't understand how I stay away from protein, yet I have all this energy. So I think if athletes do go more towards our eating, I do think they would have a lot more energy. I was a basketball player. I grew up and played basketball in college, and there was a point that I was raw during that time, and I had so much more energy. I could leap out of the building too. But anyway, and so I have a question. What is your thoughts about like blue-green algae?
One little parenthesis,
Yeah.
I just received today marine phytoplankton, which is something Brian Mirabella talks very highly about.
So, the blue-green algae and some of those kinds of things, I'm not really into it. I experimented with it years ago just because I wanted to see what it would do, if I felt different with it or if there was some kind of benefit from it. But I really never, I didn't get that. I didn't see, and a lot of that comes from uh these nutritional concepts and theories. Usually when someone uses that, they're thinking about it from a nutritional standpoint, where there's this idea that we need to absorb all these different nutrients and things from the food or from these items, and we need to supplement. If we don't get everything we're supposed to get, then we need to supplement. And that's probably one of the more controversial things, unfortunately, for within the Eric realm and the Mucusless diet, where he is. And it's something that, like, right now there's these arguments going on on our forums and stuff where they'll, about the nutrition theories, and do we throw it all away or should we consider some of it? And my thing is, I come at it kind of from an academic standpoint of, well, what's the usefulness of the theory? Like, okay, let's take a look at the usefulness of those theories, and when you put it to the test, is it helpful or not? For me, yeah, the blue-green algae and a lot of the those kinds of things were just, I think I liked that Dr. Morris called it pond scum. I think it was like, if you want to get into that kind of stuff, you can. But yeah, when I experimented with it, I didn't see any benefits from it that I didn't see from doing a fast or doing a juice period, or just being on the just general Mucusless diet. What I find, though, is when people are experiencing symptoms that are often associated with deficiencies, that there are deeper issues that have nothing to do with a lack of nutrients and nutrition, and it has more to do with the health and vigor of their endocrine system and their endocrine glands. And most people, whether you deal with it now or later, and no matter how good you have eaten in however many years, we've grown up in an environment, in a situation where we really taxed our adrenal glands and our thyroids and all that kind of stuff. And so that's a consideration, because usually, yeah, if you deal with your endocrine system and your adrenal glands and your parathyroid and so on and so forth, pituitary, and you go through a period of rebuilding on those, then you generally, really, if you just do it once and you do it well, then any of those symptoms, you can do all fast, eat nothing but fruit, all that kind of stuff, and you're not going to have any symptoms of deficiency. And so when I experienced that, that's what really let me know, like, okay, this is really about the endocrine system when it comes down to those, what a lot of people experience, where they start to go through different symptoms that are tied to deficiencies, or what they think is deficiencies. And what I found is, no, but you have to push through that theory or those theories, because you can test a lot of stuff, and you'll take things and supplements and be like, and you might feel a little better, and that's why they think that that's what it was. But when you go push beyond that, and you get to the health of the endocrine glands, and you get into actually then focusing on things that will support them and help them rebuild and function properly, then all of those, they just go away. It's like that. It's just like a whole different reality. And so yeah, that's kind of my thing there with the the blue-green algae. I don't think it's harmful. So if for somebody that if they're taking it and it makes them feel good and they like it, it's not something that I'm saying that like to just don't do if ever. For me, it's one of those neutral things where it's like, I don't really think that it helps a whole lot, but it's not something that I would tell somebody like, you shouldn't do that. It's just kind of something that I think you can, when you take it away, you might notice that you feel just as good, or even better, depending on where you are physiologically.
You mentioned enemas before. I am practicing urine enemas, but really how I feel, it can be 3 days in a row and then 2 weeks nothing. And what do you think about this practice?
I'm not in favor of the urine. Sorry. The urine therapies and
Yeah, I'm experimenting.
yeah. Where I'm much more of an advocate of lemon juice and
Okay.
distilled water.
Mhm.
And and you can, the more lemon juice you put in, and I do lemon rind juice. So I'll juice if I get an organic lemon, I'll juice the rind, the whole thing, and do several of those with a little bit of water and heat it up really hot. And that's some serious cleansing with that, in terms of, because you're loosening up so much, like the lining of the colon and intestines, just getting into the interstitial tissues, that ability for the lemon juice to pull, that astringent property gets on that lining, and you start just pulling, you just get all this mucus that otherwise would have just sort of sat there stagnant. You create this this pull, you get to start pulling this stuff out of you. Definitely doesn't happen with urine. Like, you ain't pulling nothing out. Doesn't happen with coffee. Doesn't have that astringent property. So that lemon juice is really lemon juice, and then something like a heal all tea. There's this thing that Dr. Morris has, heal all tea. But those are really the only two things, or water. But even then, like those are the two things that I recommend using in terms of the enema. Is really, like, for me, nothing really beats the lemon juice. And then there are cases where the heal all tea can be helpful. There are some cases where somebody might not be able to handle lemon juice, and you can get into the heal all tea. But yeah, so that's where I am on that.
I think Alex is pretty interested in creating like a conscious community too. And I know that you share that too. So I didn't know if I wanted to open up that kind of topic, I guess. Like what are you looking forward to when you finally have a space where you and fellow practitioners can live and just kind of enjoy life a little bit more, I think, together.
Yeah. We've had the a vision, and for a long time have been kind of in the back, behind the scenes, working on our vision of the whatever we end up calling it, the Arrett Village, or Arrett, we'll name something out after Arnold Arrett, or now Arrett Island is sort of where we're at now. We work on getting some serious resources together and getting our own tropical island and really building it out, but doing it in a way that is what's a little different than what I've seen some people's vision is, to really incorporate all of the natural architectures and technologies, really using technology in a positive way to create just a real nice environment for us, where we're in line with nature, using technology to be in line with nature as opposed to fighting against it. But yeah, that's something that we have a research and development team that I've had for a number of years, and we work on those things where we put those, really try to envision the plan, and we talk about like a boot camp process that people would have to go through before they would get in, that they were really to make sure that they are up for the challenge. Is one thing that I've seen when people have done have tried to do the communities, the filtering out process isn't all. If it's not there, then sometimes what happens is you get the wrong people ended up being together, and it falls apart like quick, because there's just like there's a honeymoon period where everybody's in love with I love this, and everybody's in, but then as what's the real world say, when people start getting real, and it ends up kind of falling apart. But we would say the reason that it does is because people haven't cleaned themselves up enough. And that's another reason why we're patient and we're not in a rush to go to kind of do things too early, as we think real transitionally. And so we want to have the group of people that are at a certain level in terms of understanding what we're doing and cleanliness level. And there's a lot less, a lot less stress, a lot less like the relapsing and this kind of stuff that goes on typically. And that's something that when we have our yearly event, people always talk about, just the energy when everybody that's practicing the Mucusless diet comes together. It's just a total different kind of energy, and that's different from anything else that they experience. And that's been my experience too. But I'm in favor of anybody that's doing this work, that's putting together communities, because we're going to need multiple conscious communities around the world and that not only create the community, but then share what they're doing to show the template. Like this is what it looks like. You have a group of people that's not killing pigs and eating horse meat and stuff. Like this is what a peaceful environment can look like. Folks that are eating the food from the earth that they make. It's like, yeah, so it's important for all of us that have that vision that do that to do it. And we'll have the different hubs around the world where people are doing that. And because eventually the unfortunate thing is there's going to be I think that we're going to have this divide where there's the people that are trying to get it together on whatever level they're at in terms of health is going to be, they'll be coming over in this direction. But the folks that are going in the other direction are going to really be extreme in the other direction. And we see that I see a lot of these Instagram and reels and this kind of stuff of the level of gluttony, that just mixing all these things, and they'll take a pizza and put a cheeseburger with it and waffles and eat it at one time and that kind of stuff. So the degeneration in the chronic illness is only going to get worse for those people, for the people that stay in that mindset, in that paradigm or level of or that vibration frequency. And so that's something that's going to be, it's going to be an interesting thing to live through, to watch that, because we can already see it from where we're at, but it's going to get even crazier over the next like 10, 20 years. That extreme is going to get ridiculous, because it's going to get interesting.
Yeah,
Would you? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, by the way, there's 17,000 islands in Indonesia. So that's definitely something we're also looking at for the private islands. And I agree. It's like, to me, it's about creating those networks of community. So I think the one you're a leader of, Spira, will be more around Eret, and I think it's amazing. On our timeline, we're going to start with one in Bali also, but not as centered around Eret, but permaculture, natural buildings, free energy, these kind of things one by one, and all of them like need to be connected, because yeah, I'd love to at least maybe go and spend a month in the Eret village, or be able to connect those communities. So I look forward to that, and we'll be in touch, Spira. I'm sure all of us here, I know we're gonna co-create on this.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember I was in Texas, and my dad took me to one of these fancy high-rise dinners, and I was kind of miserable there, but they had this cotton, what do you call those, cup holders. It was just a cotton one, and I drew out this community that I wanted to create, a health and wellness community, because at the time I was going to massage school, and then I came here to Bali kind of on accident, and I've been here for 4 years, and I found this spot that I drive by almost every day. It's just gorgeous and it's beautiful, and it's, if I can ever get enough money to create this thing, it's there in Bali. But I wanted to ask you another question, of course, and if we were to purchase your books, in which order would we buy them?
So, well, I recommend getting, if you're in the US, you get the whole, the bundle is cheaper when you get the whole bundle at one time. But if you were to get them one by one, or the order that I tell people to read it, and I have them sitting here, is so first and foremost is definitely the Annotated Mucusless Diet Healing System. Then second could be volume 1 of Spira Speaks, which is sort of I call this a lifestyle book, not a diet book. There's got a lot of extra, there's all kinds of stuff in here that's just outside case studies, and I got poems, and there's kinds of things in there. Then next you want to do rational fasting. That's the classic. Then after that, you want to do Definite Cure Chronic Constipation. Then Thus Speaketh the Stomach, because it's like these are small, but they're very dense with stuff. There's a lot of things in here when you really get in there. And then finally would be the Physical Fitness Through Superior Diet, Fasting, and Dietetics. And then this goes along. This is basically like Cliff's Notes of the Mucusless diet. So this is just, these are like lecture notes / there's glossaries and review questions and stuff like that. So that's just good to have. But yeah, that is the order that I would recommend. And I should ask you, I caught your so Zoe got me plugged into the video that you were on, and so I saw that I want to check out some of your books. And so if I was to start with one of your books, what's the first book, or the first part of the series that I should start with?
Project Atlantis. That was a bestseller in 2017, and it just continues to sell. And there's 5 books in that series, and yeah, I would definitely do that one. And then I'm doing another one called Star Guild, and that one's that'd probably be next. So thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions, guys? Thank you, Spira, for the extra time.
No problem. Enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Then I got curious about the Eret village. Can you share a little bit a visualization of how it looks like?
So we actually just if you go to my Instagram, I don't know if you saw that post. where we're working with the DALI, the Chat GPT DALI, and it was like the first time I started messing with it, and one of our Vadims, one of the members of our research and development team, he had already started messing with it and kind of putting his vision of things. But in one of the posts, I put like 8 different artist renderings of different concepts. And so for some people, the comments are always interesting on it, because it's like we want to combine. Let's see, that's one. Yeah, that's one of them.
I mean, you can't see so well, but that's on Instagram for people.
Yeah, it's like my favorite of that. I like the one. There's one that's like, I think 6. It's like the 6th one or something, but it has it's kind of round. It's got these round kind of things, and so because I like anybody that's checked into, I think, Project Venus. And
I was going to ask you about the Venus
Fresco
project.
Yeah, it's like I like a lot of his designs, and in his book on the on economics and the resource-based economy, that's something that we're really into, like that, just to create a whole different economic structure. We'll have a transitional structure in, we deal with the world as we need to deal with it, but once we have our space and we're creating our own resources and we have everything set up, the actual economic system that we'll have on the island and for the members there would be resource-based economy. So it's, we're outside of the it's like the people that want to deal with the world, that want to deal within the capitalistic structure, you can, but on the island, there will be no need for that. It's a resource-based structure, and I thought that's really good. The problem with, as is with a lot of people over the years that have had really great ideas, the problem with Jacques, I find, was just the lack of dietary and physiological space. So there was a lot of things he put in place. I like a lot of his designs and some of those theoretical frameworks, but whenever it comes to the physiological standpoint, those things are always destined to fail. As long as if you're trying to rationalize slaughtering animals, if you're trying to rationalize drinking milk of another animal and creating foods that's like whatever it's not going to work. Like however high-minded your thing is, it's destined to fail sooner or later, because the people involved, it's like you can create, and that's what I see with like the Venus project. And I think one of the reasons, I don't know a whole lot of details about how they, their plans for building it out. It's like they kind of had a lot of the plans, but I think they have 1 or 2 structures down in Florida and that kind of thing, but they don't have the physiological backing to really make that happen in the way that it would need to happen. But I do like I like that book a lot, and I do appreciate his artist renderings and some of his ideas of what he put together, definitely. Because there's some people, and even in the comments on ours, they would sort of comment like, oh, they didn't like the city idea, and they want more of that private island kind of thing, and they can do that, but we do need to have structures if we're going to have more than just a handful of people. If you're going to have thousands of people, we want to be able to have designs and create. And so that's actually what I told ChatGPT. I was like, give me something that could house 50,000 people. So not just like a little island, little city, little comfort kind of thing, but like, let's make it big enough that you can have a lot of people there, and yet it's still 100% sustainable. It's totally off the grid. It has its own systems in place, all those kinds of things. And so that's the vision. That's what we're working toward, that most definitely. And some
I
people
think
they
two,
oh, go ahead.
oh, uh, two of the things that always come to my head when I've thought about um, like how would we do it and if we did it well, I guess, is like if you're creating your own conscious community, like how would you defend it and how would you deal with like waste? Like, or, you know, not waste, but like what, yeah, the stuff that
Yeah.
comes out.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many solutions for that they're just not standardized, because if they became standardized, people wouldn't make, the people that make a lot of money wouldn't make as much money. So when it comes to disposal of waste, and especially when you're talking about people that are eating plants and fruits and vegetables and the kind of waste and elimination like that, that's great waste. That waste can be used for good. When you're eating, steak and eggs and pig, yeah, we're not going to use that as fertilizer anytime soon. That's, you don't want to use that. But those systems and a lot of that stuff is built out, and that people have there's not just like one solution. There's a lot of great solutions for that. It's just, generally speaking, there's a number of reasons why people don't put that into practice. One is, so I was really obsessed with Earth ships years ago, and we had at one of our Erit days several years ago, Dylan gave a great talk on Earth ships, and this was sort of as we started talking about the all this. I'm gonna bring this up and put this in the chat too, because you guys are like, this was a really good talk, because she had worked with the guy that was one of the inventors of Earth ships. She was like worked with him as like an apprentice and really knew a lot about this stuff. But
Thank you. And for the people watching the replay, I put those links in the description under the video.
And so she talked, regenerative living, and so she talked to some about that. Like, she has some ways to deal with waste, where you basically, like, nothing goes to waste, so the waste can be used, all of the the scraps and everything. And of course, some people already do that with their gardening and that kind of, they know how to do that, but you can do it at an even higher level when all this stuff is built out. When you're talking about protection, so that's another thing that we talk a lot about. Now, in the images, you'll see that there's drones around the island. Now, some people immediately have a problem with that. They're like, drones, I don't like those drones up there. What are they there for? We're not naive about protecting ourselves. So because that's another thing. Historically, there's been a lot of communities that come together, and and it's a little bit more on the peace and love communities, but they don't think about, like, the possibility that somebody shows up with some guns, somebody shows up with some artillery, or somebody wants to take what you have. They live in a peace and love mentality, so they're not prepared to do what needs to be done to protect themselves. And so that's where I'm a little different. I'm coming from the Malcolm X tradition of, I'm all peace and love unless you mess with me. And you mess with me, then you're not going to see the peace and love side. We're going to have to deal with something else. And I have no problem with that. And so we come, I'm not a pacifist, because there's a lot of folks in this space that seem to be pacifists. That's cool, but we just have to look to history. And it didn't work out for a lot of the peaceful native peoples around the world. Became dominated and occupied and put into reservations and had their way of life destroyed. And that's not something we're not going to let that happen. So we're going to be able to have what we need to have to protect ourselves, and just be like, tell people, just leave us alone. We'll leave you alone. You leave us alone. We're going to have that type of dynamic, but we will not be naive to, because like I said, I don't want to say something that'll get the video demonetized or banned or something, but I predict
I can
everything
cut out. I can cut
okay,
out
if something,
anything,
yeah.